Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Second, one more person. Welcome. We are back with another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. Today, we're going to be talking about Boston FinTech Week and also, in general, about FinTech conferences. Joining me is Sarah Billa and Nicole Edwards. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
This is our first. Well, this is our first in a long time of having more than one guest. So I'm really excited about this conversation. And before getting started, let's do some housekeeping. We are streaming live from LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and we also have a stream going from Instagram. Just got a wave. So we're really excited for this show today. The show title: Boston FinTech Week: How FinTech Conferences Really Get Made. Let me do a service to my guests and formally introduce them and read their bios. I'm going to start with Nicole, and then I'm going to go into Sarah's bio. Nicole Edwards is the Marketing and Community Associate at FinTech Sandbox, who works to assist FinTech entrepreneurs gain access to critical data to build their products at FinTech Sandbox. With years of experience spanning marketing and product development, Nicole has contributed to the success of companies such as Dell Technologies, H2O Capital Innovation, Kyndros, and Adobe. Now I'm going to introduce Sarah. Sarah Billa is an entrepreneur, investor, and educator in the fintech sector. She is the co-founder of FinTech Sandbox, Boston-based nonprofit that accelerates the product development cycle of fintech startups globally by providing free access to high-quality, diverse data sets, and on the founding team for the Mass FinTech Hub. She also sits on the advisory council for a $100 million Grand Challenge program funded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to make it a national leader in AI. She co-founded Capital Market Exchange, an early predictive analytics platform for bond investors leveraging NLP, Bayesian techniques, and AI ML to access non-financial factors affecting credit spreads. Its AI-driven models are used by leading asset managers, investment banks, and hedge funds globally. Sarah was named by American Banker as one of the 20 most influential women in fintech. Innovate Finance, one of the top 150 global women leaders in fintech. Gladys 80's list of top 100 women in fintech in the UK and Hong Kong and NY FinTech woman as a top 20 inspiration for her commitment to lift up other women in the industry historically not known for doing so. Her professional efforts are included in Harvard Business School case study, West Virginia, Finding Right Path Forward, and the book Silicon Heartland, transforming the Midwest from the Rust Belt to the Tech Belt and FinTech feminists, increasing inclusion, redefining innovation, and changing the future for women around the world. Amazing stuff. Pretty excited to have both of you on. So, before we get into it, let's talk about FinTech Sandbox. So back in July, we had one of your colleagues on, Tom Mallon, and we discussed why embedded finance is exploding. Every business is becoming a bank. And for those who don't know, you know what? Let me put that episode in the chat. And that's how, we were introduced, or I was introduced to FinTech Sandbox, which is leading now to this conversation. Let me just put that in the chat for people to look at and reference. For those who may not have watched that episode, Nicole, can you talk about FinTech Sandbox? Nicole, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you now.
Okay. The Tech Behind podcast, huh? Sandbox. We are a nonprofit, like you said, that helps early stage fintech entrepreneurs connect them to our data partners and have them get access to critical data sets they need to build and test their products. So when you're an early stage fintech entrepreneur, which Sarah was back in the day, which is why she built this whole thing, you likely encountered the challenge that is getting access to these data sets that are usually super expensive, in a way really prohibiting to fintech entrepreneurs to be able to innovate. So what we do is kind of bridge that gap, and help the founders get connected to the data partners, and they offer a free trial of their data, and that's how they can continue to innovate and do great stuff.
I mean, the general thread is a passion to help entrepreneurs. That's what I see, and I was really curious about Boston FinTech Week and the conference. It sounds like, I do my research obviously prior to the show. You started the Boston FinTech Week back in 2017. What led to that?
Yeah, Nicole, I'll hop in and then you help me out. It's,
Yeah.
you know what, Namdi, it was such an important moment in the ecosystem for financial services and fintech innovators. If you can kind of think way back to when, as Nicole said, when we launched FinTech Sandbox, 2014, we germinated the idea. 2015, we launched. That was in the wake of the credit crisis, right? The world had really been turned upside down from the obvious idea that we had not really fully understood the power of technology in a way to build out, risk management systems, early alerts, how to help people access credit or manage even better manage their financial lives better. And coming out of that understanding of working with entrepreneurs, as Nicole said, one of the things that also became clear and very clear to me as a founder, frankly, is that it's awfully lonely to build a company, right? It's a really tough thing. And I don't mean to understate what others are feeling today, but I can still viscerally feel the emotional tug up and down, up and down. And it wasn't just by the month, it was actually by the day. And so we had a moment to say we are early to market with an enabling organization that, because we're a not-for-profit, we're very arm's length to the whole commercial purposes of financial services, right? We have become a trusted party to all of the stakeholders in this global community who are trying really to build something great. And out of that was born Boston FinTech Week. It really was that moment. It was just a bunch of us around the table. I like to say we had one case of beer and we didn't drink it all because there wasn't very many of us at the time. But that's really the origin story. And today, in 2 weeks, we'll see 3,500, almost 4,000 people walk through different programs, different events. But I know you want us to get there later. But that's its origin story. Nicole, what did I miss?
No, just that, aside from being an awesome place where all of these ideas, are come to fruition in a way, it's also a lot of fun. And it's, I'm newer to the game. I have been with FinTech Sandbox for about a year now, but I can already see how every year these people, get together, and it's kind of like seeing your old friends, and you have a lot of fun, and it's like a family in a way. So that's what I've been able to observe.
I want to touch on something you said, Sarah. So, when back to the origin story of the FinTech Sandbox, one of the things I was curious about is, why did you decide to make it a nonprofit?
Yeah, that is a question we are asked often, Nambi, and I don't mean to say it. You hear the kind of laughter in my voice because it's so right. It's very counterintuitive.
We're finance. We like money,
right? We're money makers.
and you create such value, as they say, right now, especially with dealing with AI and different systems. The gold mine is the data, and you have put together such a revolutionary project that gets this data to companies that need it the most, that don't necessarily have the resources, but will figure it out how to get the resources to pay you for that. But yet you decide to make a nonprofit. So I want to understand that thinking.
Yeah, that is a legitimate question. And so our belief at the time, and frankly, then as a founder of a company, a predictive analytics platform, as you mentioned, revealing that I was a total nerd by saying it's a Bayes estimation technique, by the way. Those types of applications in the financial markets, as the three of us know, just hoover up data. You really need financial services is a data-driven industry at its core. But what was happening there, and actually what is happening now, is the access to the data sets that particularly early stage entrepreneurs need, including myself at that time, are really held by industry partners, right? If you just think about who owns a QSIP, or at that time, who owned, stock ticker data, both, the volume and the velocity of trading and the price change. It was and still remains largely industry, although that's evolving as AI is coming forward. And so in our minds, the way that we could enable entrepreneurs to access the data, most all of our entrepreneurs are pre-revenue, if not very, early in their revenue stages, and navigate a complex procurement process and even get the attention of the data providers. We had to forge a partnership with those companies that held the data sets. And what our problem that we were solving for those market data providers when starting FinTech Sandbox was that today there's a whole category of future buyers of your data. They can't afford it today, and they're too small for you all to care about, right? Who need to use your data to demonstrate the ability to build new products and services and distribution channels. If you'll let us give away the thing that you make revenue on for free, you're going to see a whole new business opportunity open up for you. So we could not be in a position at that moment of taking another company's product, AKA their data sets, and selling it into this environment. We needed to figure out the way to close that gap, and that not-for-profit was a solution. It's pretty wonky when you're in financial services. I say it all the time. This little not-for-profit takes more energy than any of my for-profit companies, right? Because doing good is hard, and it takes every day, and you don't have a lot of dials you can turn. So our thesis around a not-for-profit was exactly that. We would be a place that we would a rising tide would lift all ships. Entrepreneurs, industry innovators, data providers, and the talent and people that are coming behind as well. But we can talk about that later. But that was our thesis and why we went to a not-for-profit model in this particular instance for FinTech Sandbox. We were the first FinTech Sandbox, and today you see a bit of a machination of what we did, thinking about an environment. It's spread globally, Namdi. Just think, Nicole manages a community just for our FinTech Sandbox entrepreneurs that are in 20 countries and 5 continents. What the heck? Right?
Amazing stuff, bro. I'm going to read a stat, right? And correct me if this stat's incorrect or there's more. Over 400 startups have participated in the FinTech Sandbox program since inception. Its alumni has raised a collective $2 billion plus and created thousands of jobs. So the thesis worked, right?
It's like a bumblebee. I mean, right? Everyone says a bumblebee, if you look at it, from an ergonomic standpoint, should never fly. FinTech Sandbox should have never flown. Nicole, I think you would tell Namdi, though, that we can't keep up with the demand. right? You
Yeah.
were just so anyway. Nami, if you're interested in that little nugget, Nicole, I know you just came off of a series of conversations with entrepreneurs.
Yeah. No, so we run interviews for entrepreneurs for them to be able to, potentially become part of the program every week. Every week we run first rounds. Every 2 weeks we run second rounds because those are longer interviews. But I think, we've been receiving more and more applications like as time goes by. And on the one hand, I think that's because we've done an excellent job, especially in marketing, right? Spread the word. But I think on the other side, it is also kind of like a reflection of where, the industry is going and the fact that data is becoming more important than ever as founders are building their products. So I think, the combination of two things has had us super busy. But I think it's always, a good type of busy. And like Tom, our data partner manager, always says, it's a good problem to have.
Oh, hey,
Oh, no.
Nancy. Yeah, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it was a microphone not being close to me. I was getting a little comfortable. So smart. But that's good. So, I love the origin story, right? So it's 2014. You start this nonprofit, the FinTech Sandbox. We just read the stat, over $2 billion raised, over 400 companies participated, thousands of jobs are created. So the thesis, alongside some empty bottles of beer worked, right? So now we're in 2017, right? How does the idea about this community extend to a whole conference? How explain that to me?
Yeah, Nicole, you take it right now.
Well, in 2017, I was thinking about other things, but no. I think what fintech, what people in the fintech community realized is that fintech includes a lot of different, stakeholders. It's not just the startups that are innovating. It's also the data partners. It is the sponsors that are, helping us exist. And it's also the students and the academia, and it's also, the regulators. So there's so many different people that are so important for the fintech ecosystem that have a say and should have a say. And I think, what a better way to kind of like create that space where everybody's talking than a fintech conference, right? Because there's a lot of conversations going between, a few groups at a time. Investors might be talking to the startups may be talking to the data partners, but a moment where everybody's talking and sharing what needs to be done. How do we make this industry advance? That's why Boston FinTech Week was created, right? It was the moment where everybody could, have a say in what was going to be going on in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of drill down on that in a sense that you have people that have ideas. They want to put together a conference, especially when you start looking globally in different places that may not have historically had week-long conferences or a few-day, conferences at that level. It might be a networking event. And I want to understand, how do you kick something like that off?
Yeah. Nicole, can I steal your thunder? Yeah. You involve the community.
Okay.
So from our perspective, just a little kind of statement on where we started. We, at Boston FinTech Week, our first Boston FinTech Week, the thesis was that we wanted everyone in our organization of discussions and content and those of the broader community in the Massachusetts area in Boston, was the revolution started here. So there's this rich history in Boston and across the Commonwealth of fintech innovation. The mutual fund was invented here. The first time you actually could write a check, or what we know today to be a smart cash account, was invented by Fidelity, right? So being able to tap into your market returned gains of your money in a liquid way. The first banking laws in the colonies of the U.S. were in the Bay Colony. I know. No, you're like, why did I invite these nerdy girls on my podcast?
No, I love it. After you finish, I'm gonna say another. I like stats, so I'm gonna say something after you finish. So yeah, I love it. Let's go.
I'm so sorry. I saw you go. But anyway, but so we have this notional idea that notion of an idea when we started Boston FinTech Week, that FinTech Sandbox had already established itself as a convening body, right? We were kind of early to think about it, but there was so much good work being done here in Massachusetts. We have for-profit, not-for-profit organizations working on the cutting edge of ensuring that if we have a financial services system that works for everybody, no matter where they are, at any time. And that's a theme we've even actually explored in Boston FinTech Week. How do you make this wonky system of finance work? And we can't do it by ourselves because, again, go back to what we kind of talked about. We're a small not-for-profit. We really are. We're a very small team that punches above its weight. And we love the fact that others are also succeeding in this effort to build that amazing financial services system of the future. So though we put on some very, very substantive content we specifically do it during 2 days of Boston FinTech Week. We work with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and host really significant speakers. We've had the chairwoman of the FDIC. We've had the top 3 executive at Goldman Sachs. We've had the Assistant Secretary General of NATO, because NATO believes that FinTech is the future, the first line of defense, right? Before you put a man in the ground or a drone in the air, figure out how to create economic certainty. This is a call to action for FinTech. These people come to Boston FinTech Week to say that first.
Love it.
Right? And so, but then outside of that are all these other groups doing amazing things. And we want to give them the same platform. Right? And so that's how you build a week-long conference that works, that brings so many people together, that makes the connections. I mean, it's not us that's getting like $3 billion of capital motivated. We might be the little knot in the web, but our entrepreneurs are meeting investors who are hungry to talk to them, and they're not doing it with sharp elbows. I go to a lot of conferences, and you literally have to like elbow your way through the hall. Nicole said it first, and I totally will tell you this is true. People greet one another at Boston FinTech Week like they're family. That is a big point of differentiation if you're building something, if you're investing in something. If you're an industry innovator who wants to learn, this is the place. And that was our thesis.
So I have some questions on that, but to echo what you said, as of March 2025, Boston ranks 19th worldwide and 4th in the US on the Global Financial Center Index, GFCI, highlighting its growing role in fintech and finance. So, I like to, as you can tell, when someone says something, and I like to just add to the point with a cool stat that great. So that's the nerd in me.
Love it. We love it.
But yeah, so would you say, for really trying to understand how conferences get made, a large part of it is dependent on the speakers you get? Would you say that? Or like, I'm just trying to think grassroots here, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of starting doing a conference or creating a conference. What is step one?
Nicole, I'm interested in what you think. And then I'll tell you what our step one was. Just because you're on the edge. And Andy, as you can tell, Nicole and I I'm old enough to be your mom. So what is the future here? What do you think, Nicole?
Yeah, no. So I think, So for example, this year we were like, okay, what do we want to deliver to our audience? Like, what do we want to be talking about? What value do we want to be adding this year? And I think the step one for us this year was trying to nail down the theme, right? And the theme for this year is the new frontier. And it's all about how AI and new technologies are transforming the way not only we live, but the way fintech is evolving and transforming a bunch of different industries, not just the financial services industry. So I think that was our step one. And then goes like, okay, who could be our best messengers to kind of, you know, um, talk about everything that's going on, which does include the speakers. And I think we pride ourselves in having a very high caliber of speakers that are joining us for our conference. Like Sarah mentioned, all those big names that have joined us in the past and that will continue to join us this year. Definitely super important. But I think aside from the speakers who are kind of like, front page, it's all about who else is supporting us from the back end. So not only our small and mighty team, but we talk to a bunch of different people every day, all from, who's going to be hosting us at the venue. So for example, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and their wonderful team, as well as, our sponsors who are writing checks for us to be able to put this whole thing in the first place, as well as our community partners who are also going to be hosting a lot of valuable events around town, as well as all the other organizations that are helping us spread the word around town and beyond. So it's talking to a lot of different profiles of people that have different functions, but that are all part of this big web, complex, but very, very special. That is Boston FinTech Week. So there's not like a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of this network that operates simultaneously, and there's a lot of different, branches.
So
I think.
I like that, and I could definitely respect that in terms of everything is continuous, it's continuously moving and on the same path. But I like what you said in terms of getting a theme for the conference, right? So obviously you want to keep your fingers on the pulse. That's what it sounds like of what's going on in your particular vertical. In this case, it's fintech. Everybody, I mean, unless you just went away for a while with no internet connection, you're on an island, AI is huge. I mean, everyone's talking about it, right? So you're like, well, what's the new frontier? So you get that theme, and then you say, okay, I like how you put it, right? In terms of speakers, who is the best messenger, or who are the best messengers for this team? And then you start to, vet out different speakers and do the outreach. Then you brought up sponsors. So, taking it from an organization who wants to start a conference, nailing now down the sponsors, how does that process work?
Yeah. Namdi, can I say one more thing about the theme though before we get off that track? Because I think that's kind of a little bit, for at least in my mind, for anyone who's contemplating these large scale events, that is a critical organizing principle. And we unfortunately have a big cheat in how that theme gets created. So imagine, just think for a minute what we're seeing at FinTech Sandbox. Every day, we are seeing the cutting edge of innovation across the globe. The entrepreneurs who find FinTech Sandbox and go through our process and access data are the ones who are building the future of financial services. And in many ways, is no surprise to those of us in the industry, right, that look alongside it, that those companies have raised so much capital. Another stat for those startups is 82%, Nicole, 84% are still in business and or have been acquired. They are building the resilient future companies of the industry. So we know, we've been talking about DeFi because of FinTech Sandbox for almost 10 years. right? Right at the center, because we heard it first. And so heard it early, right? From our entrepreneurs who were on the edge. We talked about infrastructure 2 years ago. And today, what is critically important in the conversations across the industry is how the new plumbing of financial services is being built for the future of programmable money and the frictionless movement of capital, right? And the ability for everyone, again, to have some access. We talked about that 2 years ago. And so I think thematically, what that idea of coming up with a theme, we should not, in our case in Boston FinTech Week, be holding conversations about yesterday's activities or even today's activities. Everybody who sits with us gets a little bit of a picture into a crystal ball of where things are heading and what it means to them, whether it's changing the way that their job is going to be done in industry, the technology stacks, the interoperability challenges. We're going to talk about MCP protocols, which is how the entire world will be able to access in a commercial setting all of the agentic AI capabilities that are built today. We have the first data provider who's built on top of that MCP protocol with Anthropic speaking. I mean, that is like epically cool. Like, it blows my brains again that we're going to sit in the room and hear from that guy. So I think, if I'm starting something and I'm bringing people together, I'm doing it in a way that helps them see where things are going. And it's not, and I hate to say this, but like, I'm a conference junkie too. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to see the same people over and over and over and over. We want people to talk who are doing something, who have a whole point of view and a perspective that you're going to sit back and be like, oh crap. I better really learn more, build differently, so on and so forth. So that's my kind of skinny on the theme. The importance of a theme here is to thematically put people together who are going to talk about where things are going. And now that I've talked so much, I have forgotten your question.
No, I know that was amazing, right? Because it really highlights the importance of a theme. I love what you said in terms of, we're not talking about yesterday. We're not even talking about today. We're talking about a tomorrow that doesn't even exist yet. But you're going to get a glimpse into it based on this crystal ball. Like, it's like Nostradamus speaking, 1,000 years ago. Right?
It's Nostradamus speaking, but speaking from a perspective of tangibly building, hacking with the customers in the problem base. So yes, it is. It is a glimpse, but it's a glimpse of people who actually know what they're talking about because they're doing it.
Yeah, like you said, right? That's the cheat code, right? It's like you're seeing what these startups are doing because they're part of the sandbox. So you're seeing cutting edge technology that the world is not necessarily exposed to yet. These guys are not, most of the companies, like you said, are pre-revenue. So they're not in a state where masses are seeing it. They're testing these things out. You have access to it. Now you're saying, you know what? We see the trends, we see what's happening. Mm-hmm. Let's now leverage that for a theme for the conference. And because it's so cutting edge, so innovative, it draws people in because everybody wants to know. Like, no matter, the only time you may not want to hear about the future is if you're at a fortune teller and they're talking about your demise. But most people want to see the future. They want to know, like, what's going on? Especially in this market. It's like, where do I invest? What's going on? What should we be thinking about? Everybody's curious about that, especially in business.
Yeah, we definitely don't do any Grim Reaper stuff. But here's a great example, though, of what's happening at Boston FinTech Week that we are. Nicole, calm me down. I'm going to let Nicole talk because I talk with my hands and all this energy. But this is true. Fidelity Center for Advanced Technologies has trained an avatar of Alexander Hamilton on an LLM of his life. And of course, we know the criticality that Alexander Hamilton played in the way our US financial system works and that of the world. So just imagine for a minute, you're going to walk into Boston FinTech Week. That avatar is going to be oversized. I hope he's like 10 feet tall. I think in reality, he's going to be about 6 feet tall. but you'll be able to ask him any question about his life. What was he thinking in the origin story of the U.S. financial system and what it meant globally? His life in Nevis, his life as an orphan coming over. You can do it in 100 languages. So we also have an international audience. Nicole speaks fluent Spanish, so she'll be able to ask him. I don't. I speak West Virginia hick. So anyway, long and short. So the reason we're so thrilled to have partnered, to have Fidelity bring this capability to us, because we're going to have the past, the ability to discern history with what the future holds, because it's not going to be too long till the three of us are not talking to each other. My AI avatar is going to talk to your AI avatar, and they're going to conduct business independent of us in a physical property. It's already happening in a customer service capacity where you're interacting with AI. Sometimes you don't even know that it's an AI bot, right? Or an agent. So we think we've got to show and get people comfortable with the fact that the future of agentic AI and emotive AI and the way that financial services is going to be conducted may be looking just like this guy in a powdered wig. I mean, not really in a powdered wig, right? But you get the point. Let's have that conversation at Boston FinTech Week. My avatar is going to talk to your avatar, and we're going to seamlessly engage. And eventually my AI generated avatar is going to know myself better and my preferences than I might not even know myself, because I'm emotive about my money. I make bad decisions about my money. But are we training AI properly to know how to keep me from my own worst self? That's a question we got to ask ourselves. What is wealth tech of the future? And we have the experts to do it. So anyway, that's kind of like the buzziness of why we do Boston FinTech Week. And so you get to touch it and feel it, and yeah, come hang out with us. I can't believe that you can't get there.
No, I look, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, and that was one of the reasons why this particular episode we came up with it. When we talked to Tom, we heard about it. We might not be able to make it this year, but we said, you know what, we want to support, we want to get you guys on the show, we want to understand it, we want others that may not have been exposed to it to know that it exists and make it an option on their yearly conference budget, because I think it's extremely cool what you guys are doing. With the other question, right? So we understand the getting a theme part. How does one go about the sponsors? How does that process work?
Oh, yes.
The deep breath. Yeah, look, it's a hard game out here. So, inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah. Nicole, I'd encourage you to weigh in. You've built such a tremendous presence in our community. And I think just the short answer is that we are at FinTech Sandbox really not professional conference builders, right? We are individuals who are deeply passionate about enabling entrepreneurs, because we've been entrepreneurs before, and it sucks. But the practical side of this and the important side of this is the entrepreneurial community is best accelerated in partnership with industry. And industry, conversely, is best suited to address the future needs of its clients by knowing entrepreneurs. And so we strive to develop really strong relationships with the industry partners who are most understanding of that concept. I've worked in industry also, and sometimes it's, there is this idea that if it's not built here, it's not worth it. And, right, you've got big, large industry complexes who have extraordinary technology talent internally, and they're not looking for external activity. I don't want to say those are not our people, because all people are our people, but our people and our sponsors are really those industry partners who really, I think, are also, like we're talking about, building for a future of financial services sector in the segments they support that recognize that the industry is undergoing rapid change. And they want to be there too. They want to be prepared for this future, what I would consider really an industry. I kind of have this little saying I talk about this future financial services sector where less is more, right? An industry that's lightweight, that we can bank on our phones, which we already do, and conduct commerce. But increasingly, it's becoming permissionless, right? There's the advent of smart contracts that are guiding trading activity as an example. That means it's systematically arbitrated. Again, that idea that there's not a human in the middle. I mean, we joke about Alexander Hamilton, but the reality and avatars, but the reality is it's kind of already here. You just don't see a shape to it. So our sponsors, I think, the sponsors that, if you're going to do this, the sponsors that you want to really draw into your activity, your conference, are those who are most aligned with the vision and the value system that the organization like FinTech Sandbox has. They want to be partners. They want to be engaged and on the cutting edge. They want their employees to see what the future looks like, right? We spend a lot of time encouraging all of our sponsors and our industry, advocates to bring as many employees as they can. Interact in this world that's being built, and because it used to be in the shadows. FinTech really isn't. So that's what I would say is really look, just like if you're as an entrepreneur, right? I got to have a value proposition for someone the greatest buzz ever is somebody writing you a check for your idea. But you got to, right? But the idea or or the solution that meets their problem, you got to figure out who those people are. So we approach sponsors, in theory, just like we approach them as founders of companies. We're solving for a problem, and we'd like you to, in this case, sponsor this particular instance. That's actually, Nicole, you are going to be much more cogent about what our sponsor idea is, but that's my best way of describing how we go after them and why we get them.
No, I think that's a great way of kind of putting it, where it's like, essentially the founders want to be the sponsors want to be part of this mission that is connecting all these awesome people with each other. During Boston FinTech Week, they want to connect with all of these people as well. So, they believe in the value that is created at Boston FinTech Week. And that's why they're like, we've actually, this year, I think Sarah was very busy with all the inbound she got from sponsors because they just, they wanted to be a part of it. And I think it's really cool to see not only the people that have supported us since day one, but also all the new folks that want to be part of this. So
yeah, Nicole, one more thing too. I just realized, Nambi, this is important. We know that we have succeeded when our sponsors hold their own events during Boston FinTech Week, by the way. So a great example is Mass Mutual, right? The large insurance company here in Boston are hosting an entire day of content alongside Boston FinTech Week. And so do you know what I mean? Like that to me that's when you've succeeded. When like the entities who are like part of this thing see themselves as also contributing to the learning opportunity of all the attendees, opening their offices, convening their senior executives on questions of the day. And of course, these questions are all, as Nicole correctly said, really centered on that sort of arc of applicability of AI. What's real, what's hype, they're in their offices discussing it in the first person. Find me another conference where that happens, where you actually get to go and actually go into the offices of these big companies and sit and listen and engage with industry. And I'm not putting out the gauntlet because nobody should compete with us because we're weird, but I'm just saying.
Here's the deal, right? In your description, what I like what you said in the beginning. We are not traditional conference people. We are entrepreneurs, right? Who created something to help other entrepreneurs. And what I gathered from how you created the Boston FinTech Week, it aligns with that entrepreneurial spirit. It's like, listen, we know there's value here, right? We might not necessarily be experienced in this particular avenue, but we're going to create something. We're going to MVP it, right? Minimal viable product. We're going to test it out with the industry, see if it works. And then we're going to learn our lessons. We're going to come back and say, this doesn't work. Let's tweak it here. Let's ask our users. In this case, it's the people attending and also the sponsors, also the speakers. What do they want? Let's see. Okay, let's start from this whole theme. Let's leverage the data we're getting from FinTech Sandbox and the entrepreneurs to really talk about cutting edge themes that people will really be interested in, right? And let's leverage it from that standpoint, right? Like, yeah, we don't not necessarily understand the full aspects early on about the conference game, but we understand entrepreneurship, we understand innovation, we understand creating value. And that's what it sounds like you did. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100%. But there's a double click on what you just surmised, and I'm going to ask Nicole to talk about it, because it's not just kind of the wonkiness in which we've approached a large scale event, but it's also, again, that belief that not every entrepreneur has an opportunity to be in the audience, and or sees themselves in a place where they feel comfortable coming. And so we also we will never lose our desire to make sure that every entrepreneur finds their place. And Nicole is an example. Nicole, with your work with La Familia and the larger ecosystem, we have events that are very much welcoming and engaging for entrepreneurs at every stage of their life cycle. I don't know, Nicole, if you want to mention sort of that aspect, because I think that's another important component to our vibe and our why we have such purpose when we build Boston FinTech Week. Nicole?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And Namde, I think you had mentioned that you were specifically curious about learning how we make Boston FinTech Week this inclusive and impactful space for people. And I think, like Sarah said, like we're not traditional like event planners, like, or at least I'm not, but I think our team isn't in general. We aren't really doing this for, crazy like profit numbers either. It's more so like we want to create the space for a community, and our community includes a lot of different profiles of people. So for example, the early stage founders that maybe are super early stage, bootstrapping their companies, can they afford a $400 plus ticket? Maybe they don't feel like they're at that stage yet, but that's where I think it's really cool that our team is generous, and we're like, hey, early stage fintech founders can apply for a ticket for free. And this goes also for students and, a few other different groups of people where it's like, we want to have you, for example, international folks that are also traveling out of the country and they're also startups. We want to allow you to have like a seat at the table and listen to all these amazing things that are going to be talked about. So that's one thing, like welcoming people for free to our conference. And the other side of making this like an inclusive and impactful event is, like Sarah said, working with our community partners to create events that are more themed around how can fintech be an industry, again, that's more inclusive and that maybe, opens up the doors to people who have been traditionally set to the side. So for example, like Sarah said, we worked together with La Familia Foundation, which runs different programs such as VC Familia, I think Angel Familia, and there's one more. And they're going to be hosting an event I'm working together with the Boston chapter leads to host an event about breaking barriers and innovating in fintech as an underrepresented founder. Then we also have a track that's going to be hosted by EY that's about women in fintech and how, women have slowly been kind of like included to also take a seat at the table when it comes to capital allocation. And aside from that track, we have an international track, which is going to welcome people from different countries to join us in Boston. So again, representing a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures. So yeah, that's a little bit of the work we've done.
It's definitely
Your microphone. Oh, sorry. Now I can hear you again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's amazing stuff, and definitely critical and important, and that's great that you guys are doing that. What other aspects of putting together the conference? I mean, so it's interesting because you also mentioned the inclusivity in terms of an early stage founder may not have the budget allocation for a conference, right? So you're including that for free for them, right? And you have different tiers. Also for students and international folks who may be visiting for this conference. It's an interesting approach because some may put together the conference as a profit center, like they want to actually make X amount from the conference. I mean, we know different conferences that do that. They've been bought up and sold and things of that nature. But in your approach, that doesn't seem to be the critical point, or that's not the critical thing that you're doing there. And I'm getting to my question in a sense of, in structuring a conference, right? When you first started out, was the goal just to say, okay, here's our budget. What can we do for this budget? Or I'm trying to understand, like, in terms of growing that budget, or just saying, you know what, this year we had this budget. This is what we're going to do. The next year it suddenly increased, but the goal is not about the money, obviously.
Part of me wants to answer this in a very pragmatic way. But the reality is, none of us want to build anything that's mediocre.
Mm.
We are going to build as if we're batting for the fences, everything we do on behalf of entrepreneurs. And so we are money people at the end of the day. And so we understand how to manage within a budget and create projections and goals. And again, FinTech Sandbox is a not-for-profit. So, right, you do have a P&L. I mean, you have an L that you operate against. We have no P, but it's a need that we felt had to be met. And that was a place where all corners of the financial services sector, from an industry perspective, as well as globally, as well as, just pick your sort of your KPI there, needed to be met by somebody who cared about the future of the industry and innovators. And so we definitely, the good thing is we don't blow stuff out of the water. You don't come to our conference and see like Post Malone playing, right? Or our thing. But you definitely get to go to some very extraordinary networking events. Where standing next to you is someone who cares about having a conversation. And so the money it's never far from our mind, right? Because we are running a not-for-profit. But as part of this, what has to be front and center is the value creation for the individuals who attend. They will come, they will, and they do come back year after year after year. And we see them progress with us.
With the mission that you're on, and how you started, especially going in this non-traditional route, have you ever had doubts in this path, and how did you overcome those doubts?
Nicole, you're a year in.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting, like when you compare yourself to like big, for-profit companies that have thousands of people working for them and that are, you know, care mostly about revenue. Like it's definitely interesting to see kind of like that contrast where it's like, no, like we're a super small team and we're more mission led than profit led. Um, so I think it's not really doubts, but it's more like being able to understand the differences and really kind of like stay true to what you're doing and why you're doing it. Understanding that. Um, and yeah, like being able to work with that, feeling comfortable with working with that. If that means, being a little scrappier because you don't have a specific budget to, do XYZ, then that means you just got to get scrappy. If that means that, yeah, like it definitely means different things. So I think just, adapting to that and understanding that that's how the company operates and that's how we're going to put up the conference, despite all the challenges that come from that. So I think that's my perspective.
Another question. I know we're almost at time, and I want to kind of get this. What would surprise people the most about what happens behind the curtain?
I think the fact that we're a really small team and that we can put up this massive conference with 2 days of our forum slash symposium, all the other community events going around town, our own private events. Like it's a lot that happens. And again, usually people think that maybe we're a for-profit company. They think we've got thousands of people working for us, but no, we're tiny. And I think that's what makes it even more impressive, the fact that we can pull that off. Yeah.
When you say small team, what's the number?
What's the number, Sarah? I don't even know.
It's 4 with some part-time help.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've got halves. That's
Wait,
Yep. Yep.
oh wow, that's
Yep.
you know what? And I think that is a perfect way to end it because that number even surprised me. I assumed it was a lot more. You kept saying small team. I'm like, 20 people, 30. You're like, no, small. I'm like, okay. You're like, wow. And you know why that is so, why that is so cool and so awesome? Because it gives hope to the smaller entrepreneurs that are doing it with 2 to 3 people and trying to figure this whole game out. And the fact that you're able to accomplish what you have been able to accomplish with a team of 4, hats off to you guys. Absolutely amazing. I love it. That is an awesome part of the origin story and a testament to your efficiency in terms of being able to operate that efficient. And also, listen, offline, I'm into like jujitsu and a whole bunch of things. I'm always rooting for the scrappy person, right? Who can like figure things out and just make things happen and just take action. So I love it. A tradition that we do at the end of our show is I'm gonna get off stage, and we've been obviously talking about Boston FinTech Week for the last hour, but I'm gonna give you guys some time alone to talk to the audience about Boston FinTech Week. How can they find you? And different things of that nature. So I'll let you both do that right now, and I'll get off stage and come back afterwards.
Okay.
Nicole.
Yeah, so we would love for you guys to join us at Boston FinTech Week. Our website is bostonfintechweek.org, quite simple. But if you go to the ticketing page, you'll find options to, join us as an attendee, or, if you're an early stage founder, I think this conference is going to be particularly of value to you, and you can apply for a free ticket. If you're also an early stage founder, you can go to our website, fintechsandbox.org, and apply to our data access residency program, which I think you would also benefit from. Yeah, anything else you want to add there, Sarah?
You just did it perfectly, Nicole. Thank you.
Yeah, would love to have you.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Also for the Tech Behind FinTech listeners, we say this every show. You can go to Tech Behind FinTech /subscribe. We have a free newsletter that comes out every week, and that's a free newsletter. And you'll get, when we have FinTech news, we have our upcoming guests and so forth. So go to Tech Behind FinTech /subscribe, drop your information, and then we will see you. Okay, we have some comments from the audience. Ross Beth, Yasini Fard, he gives thumbs and two thumbs up and two fingers. So thank you.
Can I tell you, Bruce Bay is a friend of ours. That is the father of broadband. For any of you who understand the criticality of what I just said, follow this man. Bruce Bay, thanks for the thumbs up. Man,
Bruce Bay, I'm gonna connect with you. Sounds absolutely fabulous.
He is legitimately icon in our world. We would not be able to do anything we do without that man. Thanks, Bruce.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
LinkedIn request for me after the show. I love it. Yeah. So that's it. Listen, I thank you guys for the show. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's one of those conversations that we could keep talking, but I know you have other things to do. For Team of Four, I'm sure your schedule is jam-packed and busy. So I'm gonna let you guys get back to doing the wonderful things that you're doing. For everyone else, thanks for joining the show. As I always say, whether you're watching the show live today, tomorrow, or you're gonna watch it next year, I appreciate your viewership. Appreciate the messages, the behind the scene messages, and to all my wonderful guests. Definitely appreciate the conversation and talking to you. To everyone, enjoy your upcoming weekend. And we will be back next week, Friday, for another live episode of the Tech Behind FinTech, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, take care. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you, Namdi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.